welcome to this BIMCHAIN introduction video. This video will show how stakeholders can interact with BIMCHAIN to create legally binding traceability and secure data transactions. BIMCHAIN can authenticate and timestamp work files in order to ensure data consistency and immutability. Files are signed electronically for approval or acknowledgement. This also allows BIMCHAIN to protect the IP of each stakeholder because the origin of each file is fully traced. Each action will create an electronic proof linked to your digital identity. This proof is handled by a public blockchain called Ethereum that you can access anytime, independently from any software vendor or service provider. For this introduction video, we will look at how BIMCHAIN can help an architect and an engineer to collaborate and share data with their favorite file sharing service, whether it's email, WeTransfer, Dropbox, you name it. In the end, BIMCHAIN will allow them to make sure they're working on the version of the data they're supposed to be using, all without relying on a centralized cloud technology. Both have to access the project console, where the team is managed. This is your profile. These are your project members. And here are the deliverables, which regroup the BIM deliverables by phase or by contributor or both. You're free to set it up as your BIM protocol requires. Let's now have a look at what the architect is doing. She's just opened a 3D model in Revit and she's working on her RVT file. She's going to zoom on the roof of the model and make a small but very visible change, just changing the dimensions of the roof. So now we have a new version of the 3D model with a different roof than in the first version. She will now save the model. She will switch to the BIMCHAIN add-in, click on the check and sign, and then click on the sign button to sign this new version of her file. She can check the create view option. That will upload a copy of the model in Autodesk Forge so that it can be viewed from a web browser. By signing from Revit, she creates a proof of ownership of this native model and can enforce data integrity at reception. The idea is to make sure that everybody is working on an up-to-date version of the model. Let's switch now to the structure engineer. The structure engineer is working on a different RVT file. It's a different 3D model, but that 3D model actually has a link to the model supplied by the architect. We can see it in the bottom left of the window. So now the structure engineer wants to make sure that he's working on the latest version that the architect supplied. So he's opening this BIMCHAIN add-in window, clicking the refresh all button to see the status of each part of the file, including the linked file from the architect according to BIMCHAIN. And he can see that there's a newer version of that file, of the 3D model, that has been signed compared to the one he has linked to his actual RVT file. So he has to retrieve that new version before he can start working again. So to view those different changes, he can now go into the BIMCHAIN web application, check the two latest files that have been signed by the architect, and click on the Compare 3D Model button. This will load Autodesk Forge and allow the comparison between the two models, highlighting the changes that happen between the two signatures. So here you can see that indeed the roof size has changed. The engineer now has retrieved what he thinks is now the latest version of the file. So he will load it into his Revit 3D model. You can see now that it has the extended roof. And he's going to double check in BIMCHAIN that this is indeed the latest version. Once BIMCHAIN recognizes this version as the latest one being signed by the architect, the engineer is now sure that this is the authentic file. He's now sure that the data is synchronized. He can commit and protect his work and scope his liability by proving his contribution is based on the data given by the architect. So now the engineer is going to export his work to have it reviewed by the project manager. So first, he's going to export the model into an IFC file. So he's going to use the standard functionality, the standard IFC export functionality built into Revit. And when he clicks the export button, the BIMCHAIN add-in will intercept that event and open a window that will allow the engineer to sign the IFC export directly, seamlessly during the export process. So again, he has to link that export to one of the deliverables expected in the project, then click the sign button, and that's it. The IFC export of the model has now been signed into BIMCHAIN. Let's check it out in the web application. In real time, you will see the IFC export appear in the recap of all the signatures that happened on the project. So now he's going to export the model as a PDF. He'll use the 7 PDF printer driver that we supply to generate a PDF based on the model. So once the generation is complete, he can click the Save button, and the PDF is now loaded into the model and can be signed as well. So same as before, we'll link it to the right deliverable ID and then click the Sign button. Once we log back into BIMCHAIN, into the web application, we will now see the PDF, the signature for the PDF appear in the list of signed files. So here it is. You can see engineer.pdf, and you can see the history of that PDF is linked to the RVT file, the original RVT file that was used to generate it. Now the architect has received the IFC export, and she wants to make sure that it's legit. So she can check directly in Revit if the IFC export she received is indeed the one that has been signed by the engineer. So she will load it into Revit and then open the check and sign window of the BIMCHAIN add-in and use the refresh all button to see if the IFC file is exactly the one that the engineer has signed. According to BIMCHAIN, it is. It's the one that was just signed by the engineer. She can do the same thing in the web app as well. Now in the web app, she's going to check the status of the PDF file she also has received. She will just drag and drop the PDF directly into the drop to check integrity button in the BIMCHAIN web app, and here she can see the full history of that PDF and the fact that it's linked to the original RVT file. The project owner has received the IFC file and the PDF file by email. He can drag and drop them directly in the web app to see the history and to check that these are indeed the files that the engineer and the architect committed to. He doesn't need to have Revit installed. He can do it directly from his web browser. We'll tell the project owner the full history of this PDF file, a history that doesn't depend on a software vendor or service provider, and where the various commitments of all the stakeholders, the architect, the engineer, are binding. The project owner can now sign in total confidence this file in BIMCHAIN to give his final validation. There's no more need to print and sign manually, but if he still wants to do so, he can do it in full confidence. Now everyone, the architect, the engineer, the project owner, all have their own copy of the BIM data. But they know that this data is consistent, as any change will be detected. And the life history of the data, from publication to conversion to validation, is safe in the blockchain, and it can be accessed freely without any dependency on a software vendor or service provider. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed this presentation of BIMCHAIN, and we hope to hear from you soon. Please contact us at bimchain.io.